Hello and welcome to today's webinar, What Startups Need to Know About Managing Business Travel Spend, presented by Nik from TripActions. My name is Patty Montoya and I'll be your moderator today from the Early Growth Financial Service team. I have a few quick notes before we get started. The webinar will last about an hour and that includes time at the end for questions. So feel free to type your questions into the control panel and we will answer them in between slides and at the end of the presentation. The next thing to note is that this webinar will be recorded and sent to all registrants with the slide deck within 48 hours. You can also find the recording and all of our recordings on our YouTube channel, Early Growth. Now, before I pass this off to our speakers today, I'd like to tell you a bit about Early Growth Financial Services. This is a quote from our founder, David Ehrenberg, and a few of the clients we work with. And here's a quick description of what we do. We're an outsourced finance and accounting firm. We work with early stage companies, helping them with everything from day-to-day accounting to financial forecasts to taxes and valuations. Now, without further ado, I'd like to introduce our panelist from Nik Atrey from TripActions, who will tell us a bit about himself and kick off today's discussion. Nik, it's all yours.
Great. Thank you, Patty. Hey, everybody. My name is Nik Atrey, and I'm a business travel expert at TripActions. TripActions is a high-growth startup like most of you, and we've been around since 2015. And really, our mission as an organization is to move ideas and businesses forward. And we believe that in order to make this happen, you have to build a travel program with the traveler in mind. So that's the platform that we've built, and over the last 3-4 years, we've experienced phenomenal growth, leading to our last Series C raise of 154 million, making us a unicorn. But that's not why we're here today. The reason that most of you are here today is to understand how you can really control spending across travel. So as we begin, I want to quickly share my perspective on why this topic matters. So for a lot of companies, travel is the second or the third highest expense, and usually it's right after payroll. Yet when we speak with startups and smaller companies, what we hear 99% of the time is that they lack the tools they need to manage travel effectively. So over the course of today's webinar, I'm going to share with you why these problems exist, and secondly, how you can build a travel program that's going to be able to support your travelers as your company grows. Great, so first, let's start by defining what unmanaged travel actually means. So there are two ways in which companies can really go about managing their travel program. The first is where they use a traditional travel agency, or an online booking tool, or what's called a travel management company. And they're using this travel management company's either web platform or by calling into a travel agent to make all their bookings happen. Or secondly, and this is what's more common with smaller companies and high growth startups, they have unmanaged travel programs, which effectively means that they allow their employees to book on whichever website or method the employees prefer. These often end up being consumer travel websites like Kayak or Expedia because, frankly, the experience that you get when you book on Kayak and Expedia is far superior than anything else. So as opposed to a managed travel program where companies use a travel agent, unmanaged is really about letting your employees do whatever they want, but giving them some guidelines and policies in place. So that said, while unmanaged travel seems like the easiest thing to do because you're basically not doing much, there are really three massive problems that affect most of the companies that we speak with. The first is high costs, the second is productivity losses, and the third is lack of visibility into spend. And I'm going to walk through these one by one very quickly. When it comes to costs, unmanaged travel is usually more key because employees are booking whichever option they desire, and there's very little oversight So it's also hard to track when an employee is booking either something that's out of policy, because you don't really find out what they spent until they submit the expense, usually 1 or 2 months down the line. Secondly, most employees with unmanaged travel programs are spending up a lot of time because they're comparing rates and they're looking for the cheaper option. And on average, the customers we surveyed said it would take them about an hour to book a single business trip. And then lastly, because with unmanaged travel, there's no single place for people to book, there's also very little visibility for the finance teams into how people are spending. And really, finance teams struggle to drive any meaningful savings on an expense that's so core to their role. So next, I'm going to dive into each of these 3 problems and really peel back the layers and why these problems exist. And frankly, when it comes to an unmanaged travel program, why these problems are unavoidable. So let's start by dissecting why unmanaged travel costs so much more. The first thing that we notice is that most travelers have preferences. Most of us care about either flying on a United or a Delta airline. And we're really loyal to the brands that we use. And not because we particularly like them, but most of the time it's because, say, I'm based in San Francisco and United is the biggest carrier serving San Francisco. So I end up booking most of my travel on United. But what happens is when companies are unmanaged, it's impossible to know if your employees are booking a flight or a hotel that is more expensive than the fair market rate. And especially if someone is, say, a United Airlines Platinum member, it's more likely that they'll choose the United flight even if they find a cheaper option on Delta or Southwest or something else, because frankly, I want to earn my rewards when I travel for work. Second, what we found is over the last 2 decades, consumer travel companies like Expedia and Priceline have acquired the majority of their competition and effectively created a duopoly in the market. So think about all of the favorite websites that you or your employees use, like a Priceline or an Expedia, Bookings.com, Hotels.com. All of these websites are now owned by one of the 2 market leaders, which is the Priceline Group or the Expedia Group. And because of their size and influence, Priceline and Expedia are able to go directly to hotels and buy rooms in bulk. And this is what's called a closed user group rate in the travel industry. Or in layman's terms, the closed user group rate is basically the wholesale price. So if you're a Priceline or Expedia buying closed user group rates, you want to obviously make a profit on this. So what they do then is resell these rooms on their websites for an additional markup. And these are the rates or the special deals that your employees will typically see when they're booking on a consumer website. So unmanaged travel is costly, partly because of the way these websites are sourcing and reselling their inventory. And then finally, with unmanaged travel, costs end up being higher because of poor policy settings. And what we find is that most customers we chat with either don't have policies, or if they do, these policies live somewhere outside of the booking platform, usually over a Word document that is given to the employee on their first day, but they never look at it again. And I just want to preface that as we go along this deck, we're going to do a quick poll halfway through the deck and understand some of the challenges that you all are facing as well. Great. So the next thing I want to cover is why it takes people so long to book travel with an unmanaged system. So usually it's because employees are trying to find the cheapest price. And what we hear when we talk to admins or executive assistants who usually book travel for executives is that in order to ensure that they're making the best decision for the company, they are going to be spending way too much time comparing it across Kayak, Expedia, having multiple tabs open. And yes, although that helps them find the cheapest rate at that point in time through these websites, it also ends up taking them way longer than it should. And business travel or booking a simple business trip shouldn't take people 45 minutes to an hour, which is what it usually takes them. And secondly, if they don't spend the time comparing, there really is no way for an unmanaged travel company to know if they're booking the most economical fare or not. Thereby, they're wasting company money. Great. So before we carry on, after this. So the last thing I wanted to highlight here is why finance teams lack the visibility with spend. And really, it starts with the fact that there is no centralized place to either see where people are booking or to capture all of the data of people's booking behavior. And with unmanaged travel, most finance teams only find out how much people have spent after the fact. That is when the employee is submitting the expense at the very end. What this also ends up doing is preventing finance teams from finding out if people are actually overspending or not. And then lastly, because they don't really have any real-time data or any meaningful data about people's spend behaviors, they're not really able to make any good policy decisions. So fundamentally, when there's an unmanaged travel situation, we always find that the finance teams really struggle in knowing what's going on with the business with a spend that's so critical to their job. Great. So before we carry on here, I'd like to show you 3 quick polls and hear what the most common challenges that you all are facing are. So the first poll, and this should have shown up in your Zoom screen by now. The first poll is, at your company, which of these problems are you seeing come up the most? Option A, higher costs. Option B, productivity losses. Option 3, a lack of visibility into spend for your finance folks. Or option 4, none of the above. And if you're none of the above, you are very, very lucky. Great. And then the second poll is, how are you currently managing your travel program today? Option A, employees are booking on consumer sites and expensing after their trips, which is the situation we've described here. Option B, you have 1 or 2 people, typically an admin that's booking travel for everybody. Option 3, you're using a travel agency or a travel management company. Or option 4, you have no idea. Great. And then the final poll here is, what are your biggest concerns about implementing a travel program? Option A, lack of buy-in from your employees. Option B, implementation will be very time consuming. Option C, the cost it'll take to use a travel agency. And option 4, you are ready to start managing travel and you don't have any concerns. And if you answered option 4, we should chat. Great, and I'm seeing some questions popping up through the chat window. And we're gonna, I'll take this first one and then we'll save the rest of the questions for the very end. So the question that came through, and I'm not sure exactly who this came through, but the question is, we're a small company and those that do travel are pretty loyal to their own process. How do you help handle reluctant employees? Firstly, thank you so much for submitting that question. And I just want to say that this is extremely common, and you're thinking about some problems that every company that we work with thinks about. So really, when it comes to deploying a travel program, one of the biggest things we care about as TripActions is handling that change management phase, because no employee appreciates when a company decides to roll something out without either explaining them why or understanding if it's really going to help them with their job. So in our experience, the reason employees are reluctant to adopt a travel program is it's really a couple of things. The first is most employees want to know that if they're traveling for work, that they're able to earn the rewards and the points that they earn by using, say, United directly or Delta directly. So my first piece of advice to you is to ensure that whichever travel provider you choose allows you to give your employees the option to earn rewards while booking on this travel provider's travel tool. The second thing is, like, when it comes to rolling this out to the team, in our experience, we found that if companies just roll it out without explaining to their team the reasons why they're doing this and the goals that they're looking to accomplish, that's when there's a massive disconnect between the people that are deciding to buy the tool and the people that are going to be using the tool. So how we help navigate this process with our customers is that a week after launching TripActions to their team, our team will either go on site to the customer's office or will organize a Zoom meeting like this where we bring in all of their travelers. And by this 1 week window, the travelers should have created their TripActions profile. And then during that traveler meeting, what we call a traveler Q&A is when we really address the reasons why the company is doing this, and do a quick demo with every single one of the employees and how they can create their profile, how they can ensure they're earning their rewards, and really meet all the goals they meet when they book outside on a normal tool. So to summarize, there's two ways in which we recommend you handle this. First is you want to make sure that the travel provider you're choosing allows your employees to earn rewards and loyalty points, whichever airline or hotel they choose to use. And then secondly, you want to make sure that after you're rolling it out, you have a meeting with your team and you help them understand the why. Why is this so critical for the company? Why is this the way that you're going? Great. So any questions, please keep them coming along, and we've got time at the end where we'll go into some detail on what this is. All right, so the next thing I wanted to do here was really highlight a customer that the TripActions has partnered with that came to us in 2016. So it's a high-growth startup based out of Santa Clara called Qbol. And Qbol is a data management platform based in Santa Clara. So as most startups, Qbol came to us with an unmanaged travel program. And what they found was that when their team members traveled to meet with customers, yes, they were booking trips on their own on whichever website they chose, but it was really becoming a challenge for their finance teams to manage spend and to keep up with all the different employee preferences, as well as there was no real idea for the employees on what was reasonable, what was not. And then finally, one of the most common things that happens with travel, which I'm sure every single person who's traveled before has experienced, that changes. The travel changes because either your flight got delayed or something got canceled, and now you have to change your itinerary. With unmanaged travel solutions, when a situation like that occurs, the employee really has to take care of it on their own. And these are some of the pains that we heard from Qbol as well. So to summarize, the two stakeholders that Qbol wanted to serve were, one, their management team, their finance team, and then secondly, their employees. So the pains that we heard from their management team was that their existing solution was a decentralized program with very little visibility and very little control over their spending. And for the employees, because the policy guidelines weren't very clear, and this was a DIY booking system, employees were basically just guessing about what costs were fair or not, and they were really dissatisfied with the solution that they had in place. So here's how TripActions helped them. For their management team, TripActions gave them complete real-time visibility into the company's travel program. Their administrators were able to get access to personalized reports literally at the touch of a button. These reports are available in real time for any one of our customers. And then finally, for their management team, we were able to drive cost savings through the dynamic policies that adjusted to the market and the TripActions rewards program. And then finally, for Qbol's employees, how we were able to drive an impact there was TripActions has a very easy to use mobile app with customized search results that the employee cared about. B, we gave the employees the widest selection of travel inventory when they were booking. And when they were booking whichever fare they chose, they knew what the fair market rate was. And then finally, what the employees really loved was that they had 24/7 support from our support organization, but that they were also earning rewards for saving their company money. And these were rewards that we gave them in the form of Amazon gift cards or travel credit that they could use on either upgrading business travel or spending on personal travel. So by aligning the employees' incentives with the companies, we were able to drive cost savings while also delighting the travelers with a really unique experience. All right. So finally, I want to reach the end of our webinar today by highlighting the 3 ways in which TripActions is helping other startups and high growth companies like you manage their travel program. So let's begin with inventory. So as we saw from the example of Qbowl and through the slides earlier, one of the biggest challenges with corporate travel tools is a lack of inventory. And while most travel management companies, some of you may have heard of American Express, Global Business Travel, or BCD, or Carlson Wagonlit. So most of these travel management companies are sourcing their inventory from one common source called the Global Distribution System. And one of the leaders in that space is Sabre. And while Sabre is definitely a huge source of inventory, there's so much more available from consumer travel providers like Priceline and Expedia, as we talked about earlier. So how TripActions is really able to solve for this is that not only are we partnering with Sabre and the traditional sources like everyone else, but we've also built direct partnerships with the Priceline and Expedia group. And all the special deals, all the wholesale rates that they're buying, we are showing within our platform at that discounted price. So I'll give you an example here. So I ran a quick search for July 22nd to the 23rd in Chicago for one night. And really what this is showing me is that this is a special deal, which is sourced from the Expedia group's inventory. And the $240 price is what you're going to see if you look and search for this on Expedia.com. But within TripActions, we're showing it to you at $187, which is the wholesale price. The second thing here is that when you couple the widest amount of inventory with dynamic policies, that's when you're able to guide your employees to know exactly what the fair market rate is and what they should book it under. So that is what this Amazon price to beat denotes. And I'll give you a quick explanation of how this works. So we have an algorithm built within our platform that takes into account all of the 2, 3, and 4-star hotels that are available in Chicago for that one night, 22nd to the 23rd. We're deliberately not looking at 1-star and 5-star hotels and looking at the 2 to 4-star because that's really what is relevant for business travel. And when we look at that, that's how we arrive at a median price or the fair market price, which we call the price to beat that is available here. So this $263 number that you're seeing is extremely unique to Chicago for July 22nd to the 23rd. And this would change as you search in a different city in the US. So that's what I mean by having dynamic policies in place. But from there, obviously, it's great to know what the fair market price is, but the ultimate goal for any company is to ensure that their people are making a more cost-conscious choice. And really, like I'm sure if any of you have traveled for work, you'll know that if your company gives you a $263 policy, you're going to book a $262 hotel. And it's very unlikely that you're going to book something that's $200 or $187, because honestly, if I do, no one's giving me a pat on the back for making a good choice. So that's the problem that we noticed when we were building TripActions. And to incentivize good behavior, how TripActions deals with this problem is by offering these employee incentives in the form of Amazon rewards. So let's say I booked the W Chicago Lakeshore. And bear in mind, this is a pretty nice hotel, and this is my favorite place to stay at in Chicago. So it's a decent quality hotel available for $187, which is about $80 below the Amazon price to beat. And only when I make this decision and choose something that's below the price to beat do I earn these Amazon rewards. And what's typical in TripActions is about a 30-70 split. So 30% of the cost savings go to the employee and 70% of the savings go to the company. And to be open, it's the company that ultimately pays for it, but you pay for it from all the savings that your employees generate for you. Great. So secondly, by bringing in all of the inventory into a single system, and by leveraging the power of machine learning and AI, TripActions is able to show your employees the most relevant options that they're likely to book. And we're able to do this because we know when your employee is setting up their profile in our platform, which airlines, which hotels, which rental car agencies they're a member of and they have status with. And based on that information, when an employee searches within TripActions, we're going to show them and prioritize the search results that are most meaningful to them. And we find that the final result of all of this machine learning and AI is that employees end up booking the option that's available on the first page of the search, thereby reducing the amount of time it takes them to book travel from an average of an hour to about 6 minutes. And lastly, any travel tool needs to provide the finance department visibility into your spend. And TripActions is doing this by providing all of our customers with an easy-to-use dashboard. And the reason we're able to drive this impact for your finance teams is because every single booking that's taking place within our platform, we're capturing and showing on the back end. At that time of booking, we're also capturing what the fair market rate is. So with every single booking that's taking place in our platform, we can show every single one of our customers which employee booked an option that was over and under the price to beat. And that's the type of information that our customers really get value from, because that is what allows them to both capture all of their spend and then ultimately make better decisions on how they can save money by creating more intelligent travel policies. All right, so to summarize, I wanted to leave you all with 3 best practices for building the best travel program for your own startup. So best practice number 1, in corporate travel, adoption is the only thing that matters. So if you buy a tool today that your employees don't like because it's either clunky or difficult to navigate, or what's most common is that it doesn't capture all of the inventory, your employees are going to go and book outside the platform. So the biggest piece of advice that we can give you is think about how you're going to achieve 100% traveler adoption from day 1. Second, while travel policies are important, policies alone cannot be the silver bullet. So to support your travelers as they use TripActions or any other platform, you want to ensure that you have flexible policies in place that guide your employees on what's the right thing to do, but it's not restricting them that they need to go through an approval every single time they book something. And then finally, in order to pick the ideal travel provider, one of the biggest things high growth startups need to think about is a solution that's going to scale with you. Because you're not just buying something that's for the size of your company today, you want to buy something that's going to support your company a year, 2, 3 years from now. And this matters because not all solutions are able to scale. So it's important to pick one that has the right infrastructure in place to support your growing team. And a couple of examples of what the infrastructure means is, for example, the size of that travel provider's support team. Let's say you're planning to, you start today in the US, but you want to grow into EMEA and open an office in London or France or somewhere. You want to make sure that your travel provider has presence and has support agents that are going to be able to support your team in EMEA, in London, in France. And secondly, you want to make sure that not only that they have the infrastructure in place, but they have customers who have experienced this travel provider and can vouch for the value that they bring to the company. Great, so that's all we have for the content today. Next, I'm going to open up some of the questions that came through the chat and address them one by one.
Yes, Nik, we have a question. It says, does TripActions source inventory? How do you get better rates than the market?
Great, so I just want to confirm the question, Patty. It's, how does TripActions source good inventory and get the best rates?
Yes, compared to market rates.
Yeah, that's a great question. And let me go back a couple of slides and address this question for folks. Okay, so inventory really comes from two areas in corporate travel. The first area is what I'm showing you here on the left-hand side. Sabre is what's called a global distribution system. A global distribution system was created back in the 1980s when we were moving online to the web and when we wanted to bring all the travel inventory online. So one of the ways in which we source our inventory is by connecting with Sabre, but then also connecting directly with airlines, hotels that you see on the left-hand side here. But this is common. This is what everyone else does. What everyone else doesn't do, and the secret sauce for us here is that we are partnering directly with Priceline and Expedia and getting access to all of the wholesale rates that Priceline and Expedia are buying when they go and negotiate what's called closed user group pricing with, say, Hilton or Marriott. An example of this is some of you may have heard of Priceline's Name Your Price tool. And what Priceline does there is, let's say they buy a hotel room at $100, they set a floor of $120 and let people bid anything above $120 and then buy the hotel room with that blind bid. So really how TripActions is able to give you the cheapest rates is that $100 rate that Priceline and Expedia are buying as a closed user group pricing. We are bringing that same rate into our platform, but we are not marking it up. And the reason that we are not marking it up is because, again, we are not in the business of making money on one hotel room here or there. Our goals as a company is to ensure 100% adoption for our customers and to give them the right program, because if we meet those two goals, TripActions will make money and TripActions will be successful. So really for us, it's about giving our customers the widest amount of inventory at the cheapest possible rate, and we're able to do that because of our direct partnerships with Priceline and Expedia Group. There was a question here from Balaji Renukumar. Balaji is from SenseFix in Palo Alto. Oh, actually, it was just if we were recording this. Balaji, yes, we're recording this and we'll share it with you after. Okay. So Balaji's question is, again, about sourcing inventory and flight tickets on Skyscanner. So that's the website that they use today. They also compare Skyscanner rates against eBookers, Expedia, Cheap Flights, CheapOair, etc. So you've been using this for 2 years, Balaji, and you're wondering how we're going to be cheaper than them. Again, like what I want to drive home here is that, yeah, although we're generally going to have the cheapest rates, we never want to promise that you're going to find cheapest rates 100 out of 100 times in our platform. But in general, Balaji, the way we're going to be able to compete against someone like a Skyscanner and any of the other websites, it's by bringing in all of the inventory that's available in all of the sources. And really, it's not just about giving the cheapest rates. It's when it comes to TripActions, it's about the entire value of managing travel through a single source. Do we have any other questions coming through?
Hi, Nick. I think at the moment we don't.
Okay, there's one more that came in. Okay, so Balaji's question was, do you have some program where miles earned with airlines are also used for booking hotels and other things? We have a program where miles earned with airlines are able to be used on. So Balaji, the answer there is we don't. However, if you have a partnership with, say, corporate car, like American Express, where you're earning points for using American Express's cards, then you can use those same cards within the TripActions platform. So that's how you'll be able to use any points that you're earning on your corporate cards. But we don't have a program in place for that. So yeah, you can use your own miles. And the way that we can help you there, Balaji, is our 24/7 support team can help you book travel through the miles that you've earned. All right, so I think that's it for the webinar today. Thank you very much, everybody. And I'm going to hand it over to Patty now so that she can close it out and share with you details and next steps and how we're going to provide the deck over to you guys later today.
Nick, just two more questions if you have the time. One says, any functionality for per diem spend?
Any functionality for per diem spend? So per diem usually includes spend outside of travel. So the answer there will be no. But if you have different policies or different budgets that you give to different teams, let's say the sales team has a different budget for travel versus the marketing team, that's the level of functionality that we can provide to you within the back-end reporting on the platform. But nothing for per diem spend.
Okay. The second question says, what is the difference between TripActions and Agencia?
Great question. So the difference between TripActions and Agencia. Yeah, and look, honestly, it's always tough to talk about a competitor without sounding like you're discounting what they do. But I'll put it this way: when we have customers that come to us from Agencia, a couple of things really stand out. One is that they're not seeing 100% adoption or anywhere close to 100% adoption because of the amount of inventory that's available through Agencia. So what most people may or may not know about is that Agencia is owned by the Expedia group. So yes, they'll source Expedia inventory, but usually not have access to Priceline inventory. And then the second thing we usually hear is the experience on the support side. So the difference between us and really any other travel provider out there is that we're really the only one-stop shop in travel today where we're a booking tool with a travel agency on the back end and a world-class 24/7 support team that's available literally at the touch of a button and is effectively a travel agent in your pocket. So whether it's Agencia or any other solution that you know of, the difference between us and them will come down to those three factors.
We have another question. It says, my traveler's biggest concern is booking direct with hotels, airlines. So they're their customers. So if any issues arise, they have better control of the outcome. If any issues arise or changes in travel plans are needed, how would you handle driving compliance to the booking tool when stakeholders are giving up control and have to work through TripActions for changes on the fly?
Sorry, I want to understand that question properly. Could you repeat that?
Correct.
Again?
Yeah, the question it says, how would you handle driving compliances to the booking tools when stakeholders are giving up control and have to work through TripActions for changes on the fly?
Okay. How do we handle compliance? Yeah, I think, look, ultimately, what we find is that most travelers, when a problem arises with one of their business trips, most travelers are having to deal with the problem on their own. They're having to call the airline or the hotel and stay on hold and talk to the support agent on their own. How we serve our customers in situations like this is, our support team is proactive. So when we notice that your flight is going to be delayed, which would potentially cause you to miss your connection, we will reach out to you proactively through the mobile app and let you know that the flight is getting delayed. And then our support team will work with you to make that change happen and get you booked onto the next flight. And frankly, like, that's the magical experience in travel here, because you really only need support when things go wrong. And our support agents are fully certified travel agents. And they're able to work with you by looking at what's happening in your itinerary and basically act as your travel agent and resolve everything without you having to do it. So how we'll ensure compliance there is that by delivering a good experience, your travelers are going to really love having TripActions available. And what we hear from most customers is that they want to use TripActions not just for business travel, but even for personal travel, because they want the ability to contact support even when they're traveling with their family. So hopefully I answered that question. If not, I'm happy to take it offline and connect with that person directly, Patty.
Great, Nick. I think we're all set for today. Just a reminder for everyone attending, I will be sending an email. I will include the pitch deck and the recording for today's webinar. If you have any questions, I'll include Nick's email so you can contact him. They have included ebook, so I will share the link to that ebook for future information about action on managing your travels. And if you have any questions for Legal or Nick, just let us know. Happy to help out. Thank you very much, Nick, and to all TripActions team. And we'll have a webinar in 2 weeks with Gusto. Thank you very much. Bye.
Great, thank you.